Hey everyone, welcome back to another bowl season episode of Locked In, where we provide college football intel for the modern fan. I am Coach Dr. Jeremy Law, and I'm joined tonight by my co-host, the legendary Logan Revel. Chance Rollins wasn't able to make it with us tonight, but we're going to try to get as much of his input in from a distance as we possibly can. So here it is. The new year's upon us. I mean, this is when the in the olden days, and I guess even in the new days, the bowl season really hits its peak. I mean, you know that pretty much everything's big from this point out, and we're going to eventually get us a national champion crown. But always at noon on New Year's Day, before we start talking about champions, we start talking about the Citrus Bowl. And as someone who has, I guess you could say, a bit of a tie to the University of Tennessee, and then I took a PhD from there a few years ago. I'm an interested Tennessee person in this particular game. As I have been in many Citrus Bowls in the past, though it seems like it's been a while since the Vols have been there. Always like the Citrus Bowl also because it always pits the SEC against the Big Ten, and I'm a bit of a Big Ten person from way back. Always liked the style of play that you saw in the Big Ten when I was a kid back in the '80s and the '90s. I still to this day, I in some way love the old 3 yards in a cloud of dust mentality, even though that we've gone far from that, and I myself have too, as a coach. Nevertheless, this bowl game always brings me back. This year, I think that the Citrus Bowl is quite interesting. And I think it is made so because not only is it a traditional Big Ten SEC matchup, who's going to win? Big Ten power, SEC speed. That's always the question. But this year, it's particularly interesting because you have a interestingly much maligned good team in Iowa that's going to be facing off against a team that has, if I'm being honest, more questions than answers in Tennessee. And as a result, this is a game that I'm interested to see unfold. And this is a game that I probably would not be eager to bet on if I were a betting man, because there are enough factors that have been shifted over the last few days that I think that this one could go either way. And there are still some things that we just don't know, especially about this Tennessee team. For example, who is Nico? What's he going to do? Tennessee fans, I live close to them. I'm amongst them all the time. They don't want to know what this Nico character is about. They want to know what the $5 million man is all about. Well, they're about to find out tomorrow at noon. Hopefully, what they find out is going to be, good news, but who knows? On top of that, Rev, we've got a bunch of Tennessee players who are going to be missing in this game, and some of them I honestly think could make a great contribution tomorrow if they were there. But alas, could you tell us a little bit about who is going to be missing for Tennessee?
So Tennessee has 15 confirmed opt-outs. One who is questionable right now, who's on the offensive line. Multiple offensive linemen are listed as opting out or transferring or injured. I don't believe they are starters, but on the defensive side is a different story. We have four DBs who are opting out of this game, whether transferred or injured, just not playing. All of which you have seen significant playing time this year or are starters. And then another one that I've really keyed on, and I think you have as well, is a defensive end. His name is Tyler Barron, and he has 6 sacks on the year. He is a factor for this Tennessee defense, and he will not be playing. He's transferred out. So on top,
Transferred,
go ahead.
transferred to Ole Miss, I believe. Another big pickup for Kiffin.
So we have four DBs, all who have significant playing time. A defensive end who is a major contributor for the Tennessee's defense this year, and then we also have two linebackers who are rotational guys. Their stat sheet isn't going to light it up anywhere, but nonetheless they are not playing in this game. And on top of that, is if the defensive side wasn't enough, you obviously have Joe Milton who has opted out. We know Jalen Wright and Jabari Small, both good running backs for Tennessee, are not playing in this game. And then we have a couple of receivers who are not playing in this game. They've already been known due to injury. Bru McCoy and Dante Thornton, neither of those are playing in this game either. So we have 15 overall Tennessee players who will not be playing in this game.
And the thing that really, I guess, intrigues me more than anything, like for instance, I don't know that the defensive backfield will kill Tennessee. And I say that precisely because Iowa is they're just not a passing team that you're going to worry about. In fact, I mean, total offense, they're number 130 out of 130. So I don't think that that's going to keep any defensive coordinator up at night. Now, I will say I like their running back. I think he can change a game. I think Iowa has been very inconsistent at quarterback position, and I know they had an injury earlier on in the season. The McNamara from Michigan transferred in. That didn't work out, I think, due to injury. And now, what's the? Do you remember offhand what the guy's name who'll be starting for Iowa? Deacon. What was his last name?
Deacon Hill.
Deacon Hill. And I don't think Deacon Hill is exactly what you expect to be a world beater. 49.4% completions, excuse me, almost 1,100 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So this guy's kind of a mixed bag. I mean, he's not what you would call elite. He's not even what you would call good at the quarterback position. And then the receivers that he's going to be throwing to, um, Eric All, tight end, Nico Reganey, a wide receiver, Addison Ostrenga, another tight end, and then Caleb Brown, a wide receiver. These are the people in the vicinity of 20 catches for the Hawkeyes, two of them being tight ends. That kind of tells you something about the Iowa offense. It is very much your typical Big Ten West, two tight end, um, ball control. If we got a chance to throw one deep, we'll throw it deep, but that's probably not what we're doing. And honestly, I think that whenever you have a better than 50-50 chance of throwing an interception, I don't think they're going to trust Deacon Hill against any defense, even if it is depleted, because that's a. I think that the name of the game, if you're Iowa, is keep the ball, stop Tennessee from scoring, and do not turn it over. Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree. I mean, you would like to take advantage of a depleted secondary for Tennessee if you're Iowa, but they
Sure.
have not shown the ability to do that at all this season. I mean, you talk about him not being a world beater, that is Deacon Hill. He ranks 125th overall in the FBS for his QBR, which is 22.9. There are 130 teams in the FBS. Now, obviously, there are more quarterbacks due to injury
Yeah.
and whatever, but that is still very, very low.
Very
Uh,
low. Very low.
and that's in 8 starts. Obviously, he did not go into this season thinking he was going to be the guy. That was Caden McNamara from Michigan,
Hmm.
but nonetheless, he has had a lot of games under his belt and has just not produced. I mean,
Yeah.
if anybody has turned on an Iowa football game, everybody knows their offense is flat out bad, and it is not assisted at all by him playing quarterback. They are going to want to run the ball because that's all that they can really do effectively, and even that is a little bit skewed as far as when you look at their run game. LaShawn Williams, he's their starting running back. He is playing in this game, and I mean he's a good back. He had 840 or 804 yards on the year, nearly 5 yards per carry. But it's been either he does really really well or he gets shut down most of the time. He
Yeah.
his total carry yards 804. 3 games have massively assisted that number, that being 111 against Nebraska, 174 against Wisconsin, and 145 against Western Michigan. Now, I mean, Wisconsin has a fairly decent defense, and 174 yards is great, but obviously those three really boost his total yards this season. And if you look at the other 9 games that he's played, that's not a lot. So just in general, this offense is almost or just is inept. And you would want to take advantage of a depleted secondary, like I said, but I just don't think you'll be able to when you're Iowa.
Yeah, I don't think that's not going to happen in my opinion. Well, it seems like to me that if you look at the game log for LaShawn Williams, uh, there had to be something going on earlier in the year. So I mean, I think that kind of might skew his stats a little bit, and the rest of in with the other,
Mm.
because his first 2 games, he got 6 carries against Utah State. He got 1 carry against Iowa State. So yeah, there was something going on there. Um, that probably injury. Who knows? Something was up. I honestly don't follow Iowa football closely enough to tell you what the deal was. He did have the breakout though, 145 against Western Michigan, which he should get that against Western Michigan. But the thing that gets me is when you turn and you start looking. Okay, so 12 for 145 against Western Michigan. Clearly, he's back ready to go. I guess you could say 6 carries for 9 against Penn State, 12 for 38 against Michigan State, and Penn State's a good defense, but that's not a lot of carries. You can't get much of a sample size there. But one thing we can say is that's a good defense, and he didn't run against them.
Hmm.
Don't know why. Michigan State, not the best in the world, but that's a 3.2. That's really not going to cut it, I don't think, for for what Iowa needs him to do. Then the one that really gets me, if I don't know if you're looking at the same thing that I am, what in God's name happened at Minnesota? A home game versus Minnesota, the 12-0 loss, 11 carries for 13 yards. I personally think that Minnesota has been one of the biggest letdowns in college football over the last 2 years. After PJ Fleck had them, really fired up, it just seems like they're down to ashes now. I don't think there's even any embers left. But they pretty much shut this kid down. And really the same could be said for the next several games. Illinois, Rutgers, Northwestern, well, he 80 yards against Northwestern or 79. Not bad. But it really seems like that this guy comes to play whenever, the low quality comes to town. And that's no disrespect to him because, I mean, I couldn't under any circumstances, have a 800-yard season in major college football. But I think you do have to point out, like you said, this is some sketchy crowds that he's getting these yards against. So I don't know. And truth be told, Tennessee is a top 25 rushing defense. I mean, with that being said, I think they can handle Mr. LaShawn Williams. Would you not agree?
I agree. Yeah, he just does not jump out on the page as as a stud running back that can win them games like other teams have. And they are one dimensional anyway without complete ineffective passing games. So that makes them one dimensional running. And that dimension that they're supposed to be, good at has not, I mean, overall, they just are almost zero dimensional on offense. I think that's the thing that everybody has been able to take away this year watching Iowa. I mean, they're the worst offense in the country, and pretty much all statistics is what it is. And I think even a depleted bad defense with Tennessee, or semi, they had a decent defense this year,
Mm.
but they're depleted, so they're not going to be as good as they have been this year. And I still don't think that matters.
No, I don't think so either. The thing like where I see Iowa getting in this ball game on offense is if Tennessee turns it over.
Hmm.
And honestly, I think that probably the emphasis for people watching this game is Nico, the quarterback, gonna hang 2 or 3 interceptions and put Iowa in a position to play on a short field. Because I believe that if you can have bad turnovers, then Iowa really has a chance to score more points than they otherwise might. That's where I think that that's the real question in this game is will the Tennessee quarterback come out and do what people hope that he will do and look like a star, or will he let the Hawkeyes' bad offense play against the depleted Tennessee defense on a 40 to 35-yard field? If that happens, given Iowa's defense, if they could, you know, if you're a Tennessee fan, God forbid they, have a scoop and score or a pick six. If Iowa's defense scores in this game, I think it's going to get harder for Tennessee to win it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Their defense has kept them in every game they played this year. Obviously, with the ineptitude of their offense, they won 10 games. They played in the Big Ten championship. I mean, despite the worst offense in the country, they squeaked out 10 games. Should have been 11. I watched that Minnesota Iowa game. It was 12-10, and Iowa won the game on a punt return for touchdown with like 20 seconds left in the game, maybe even it was about 20 seconds left, and it was called back due to a false fair catch signal, which was I'm not a big conspiracy fella, But when you watch that, he clearly was telling his teammates to get away from the ball. It's a classic Peter call that you'll hear all across all levels of the
Mhm.
sport, which just means get away from the ball. We don't know where it's going to bounce. We don't want to turn the ball over. And the
Sure.
return man for Iowa did a great job getting back over the ball, skirting across the sideline, and scoring a touchdown to beat Minnesota. And then it was called back, and then Minnesota won that game. So you're looking at an 11 win game. I believe that's correct. Or 11 win team they should be. They should be 11
Yeah,
win
it would
team.
be. Yeah.
And that is all in part by their great defense and a very good special teams. They probably have the best
Yeah.
punter in the country. And I mean, it's a joke at this point with how much media attention and just overall people talk about the punter for Iowa. And
Right.
they keep them in this game because that's how they beat all the teams that they beat. Is their defense just holds up. And I think you're right with talking about a new quarterback coming in. I know he has all the hype in the world. He's the big guy that everybody in Knoxville and all the Tennessee fans, they're really, really excited to see him play. And this is a good test for him. Iowa has a good defense. And it'll be very interesting to see how he plays and how the play call works for him. If they just let him go, let him sling it, does he make good decisions with the football? And does he hit his targets when he needs to? Does he make the correct reads? Does he pull it down? Does he try and force it? What is Nico going to do in this game? That's going to be the biggest story. Because if he does decide to throw a couple picks and make a couple bad decisions, you do not want to get into a one-score game in the fourth quarter with Iowa. They live on them, and I don't see a good outcome if Tennessee starts turning the ball over, and that's the case for the majority of teams. But given the way Iowa wins football games, you got to protect this football if you're Tennessee.
Yeah, I think you're right. One of the things that I'll say before we move into film too, this season, well, it seems like every few seasons, the moment happens whenever um, the Iowa community and the national media really turned hard on Iowa head coach Kurt Ferentz. That man has been there for years, and he's played football the same way for many, many years, and it works for Iowa. Now, you could make the argument because it's like with the talking about the almost 11 win season, they play in probably the weakest, one of the weakest major conference divisions in college football. It's really pretty soft, honestly. But nevertheless, they have a tendency to take care of business. And I think that you have to respect that, and you have to know going in, if you're a team like Tennessee, this is a game that I think that Tennessee probably feels confident in. I would not say that they're coming in thinking, "Yeah, we've got this one by the tail," but I do think that they're gonna come into it feeling confident, even with the transfers, because Tennessee, I think both of these, and this is something that I've really enjoyed about a lot of the, non I guess, non-playoff, non-New Year's Six bowls, there have been some really strong narratives for teams going into them. I think Iowa wants to prove people wrong. I think they want to shut up the critics
Hmm.
and say, just let us do our business. Um, give us respect for being 10-2 and playing on New Year's Day, against a quality opponent, and just let us be us and figure out what's going on. By the same token, Tennessee has made some, in my opinion, what might prove to be killer moves in the transfer portal. And they have picked up some great recruits. So Heupel has really been on the trail of some fine players. And one of the things that stood out is that they have like this secondary, those boys aren't gone for any reason. I mean, he has almost, in my
Mm.
opinion, coach primed that secondary and said that is an area of concern and we need to beef it up. So we're going out to get guys. And so I know they have the Jermod McCoy coming in from Oregon State. They got a couple of other guys that are passing into that secondary. They even have a local guy from, who played, senior year at Bradley Central in Cleveland, Tennessee, Boo Carter, who's probably going to be helping out some in the secondary, going forward. They've gotten some big names coming in to help them out. So I think that what that Heupel is seeing is he's beefing that defense up, and he's shown that he's not afraid to run the ball. He's not just a standard air raid guy, even though that's the label that's put on him. There's some things that are quite interesting about what Tennessee does, and I think that next year they're looking at this. Nico's starting tomorrow. 2024 is a new year. Let's go get it. 2023 hasn't been everything that Tennessee fans wanted it to be. But if I'm being honest with you, I don't care what, the Orange Bowl last year looked like. Joe Milton's Joe Milton. And there is a hard ceiling on what you can do with him. And honestly, I think that Tennessee has done well this year to be where they're at. And so I think going forward, they're thinking we have a stud quarterback who we're going to get several years of production out of. Let's go win a national championship. And so I think tomorrow, if Tennessee can come out and really take care of business, that shapes the trajectory of the narrative for that program for the course of probably the next 3 years. Likewise, the same if Iowa can come out and get themselves a win in this ball game, it's a bit of vindication on a national stage against a good opponent. And so I think that both these teams, this is not just a game they'd like to win. I think they both need to win it because woe be unto Tennessee if you roll out your untested freshman quarterback who's supposed to be the world beater and you end up losing by 2 scores to Iowa tomorrow. I think that bends the narrative in a completely different way. Likewise, the same if Tennessee came out and handles Iowa with the freshmen and the young running backs, and that depleted secondary. I think Ferentz's seat gets pretty dadgum hot, and I don't know if he lasts another year. Now, is that justified? I don't know, because I'm going to tell you the truth. This is what I think about Iowa. I don't know that it gets much better. And whenever I think of this, and this is way off topic, but I've had several big Michigan fans in my life, cousins who have attended graduate school, University of Michigan, huge Michigan football fans. And I remember when they fired, or I guess maybe he resigned, head coach Lloyd Carr, because you don't really fire a guy like Lloyd Carr. I told my cousin, this is not a good move. He said, we lost to Appalachian State. It can't get much worse than that. And I said, just hold on to your seat. And then what happened to Michigan State or Michigan football post Lloyd Carr? Straight off a cliff. That's what I wonder with Iowa. And I don't want to sound like I'm demeaning them, because I like Iowa. I really do. But I think sometimes you need to know who you are. And you also need to know 10-win season, nearly 11-win season. Those happen about every 5 years in Iowa. There are plenty of places in this country that a 10-win season simply ain't happening. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so sometimes I think you need to calm down and know who you are, and know that you have a guy who cares about the program and who knows how to make that program compete. So I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of tension surrounding this game. So with that being said, why don't we've talked it up plenty? Let's shift into some of the film and try to see what these teams might be doing tomorrow.
All right, Iowa up first.
All right, when you look at this defensive setup from Iowa, I'll set up the Michigan offense. You are in the most basic spread formation that you could be in if you're the Michigan Wolverines. You are in what the Mike Leach, Hal Mummy crew would call ace. 2 wide receivers to each side, a running back in the side cart next to a shotgun quarterback. The most basic spread formation in the air raid system. How does Iowa line up to meet this, which they will certainly see from Tennessee tomorrow?
So we have 3 down linemen. We have 2 outside backers. There we go. So we have a nickel over top of number 2 on top of the screen. It looks like we have another backer who's backed off to be over top of number 2 on the bottom corner safety. And then we only have one linebacker in the box. So Iowa will vary things up. Their defense is obviously their strong suit, as we've already talked about. This is the way that they like to defend things. Is they do not want to get beat over top. Iowa is self-aware. They know they don't have, the supreme athletes on either side of the ball. Their defense is great, but they play team defense. They don't play, stud defense where certain key players at key positions make big plays for them. That's not how they play. That's one of the reasons why they're so defensively sound. They have to be. So the way that you will see most of their coverages, you're going to see a lot of cover four. Sometimes you'll see them drop a fifth guy. They'll drop a backer, and really all they're doing is saying, all right, we're going to keep everything in front of us. We're going to rally to the football. We're going to hope that our pass rush gets to the quarterback, and then we're going to be gap sound as best we can be.
And one of the things that I say about the cover four quarters defense, or you'll hear it called both. I expect them to do that a lot tomorrow against Tennessee because having the inexperienced quarterback. Now, we can preface this by saying Nico has played some football, but he's played some football against terrible defenses this year, like the likes of UConn, Vanderbilt, some of the worst passing defenses in the country. When you drop those defensive backs and form that umbrella over top with quarters coverage, you are saying beat us with precision passes underneath. If you can do that, then maybe we will start to adjust. But until you show us that you can throw a ball in a tight space, we're going to keep on being back here deep and contesting your vertical routes. And anybody who's watched Tennessee knows they love to push the ball down the field. Cover four is in some ways an absolute just, cure all for the deep vertical passing game, because when the quarterback sees those defenders sitting back there working into that window where the receiver is going to try to be getting the ball, it makes them think twice about throwing that ball deep. And the problem is with Iowa, if Tennessee's quarterback holds on to the ball a half a second too long, he's probably going to have a defensive lineman in his face. So I think it all goes hand in hand. It's a good safe defense, but it's also one that puts a lot of pressure mentally on a young quarterback. So I expect to see Iowa try to make him put the ball into windows.
Brought 5-on-5. And this is kind of an example of what we're talking about. They'll give underneath stuff in order to just come down, make the play, and not let you get. I mean, 15 yards is honestly a lot, but it's better than a 60-yard touchdown. So Iowa is going to stay in things like this quite a bit, I believe, especially the way that the idea of Tennessee throwing the ball deep is obviously very concerning for them. They're not going to want to let that happen. So they're going to play cloud. They're going to play umbrella and try and do just like they did here against Michigan, just get them out of bounds, move on to the next play.
And right there, I'll say before we move on, one of the oldest, at least in my opinion, one of the oldest defensive tricks in the book to play against a team that wants to throw the ball downfield is this looks like a total loss. And in some ways, I guess you could say that it is. This is a little, basically just a little comeback type route that ends up giving them 12 yards and a first down. But the thing of it is, I think Iowa will want to commit to making them drive the field. Okay, you want to throw the ball? Do it in 8 to 12-yard chunks. We want you to be patient. And what will happen lots of times, for instance, we saw it the other day with a stupid interception by the kid at Penn State. There come times whenever a defense makes you like take little stuff, and all of a sudden you decide, hey, I'm getting rushed a little bit. I'm going to push it down the field, and you throw the most ill-advised ball ever. That's what this give them 5, give them 10 type defense is doing. They know they can get beat deep, so they're going to keep you under, and they want you to get impatient and throw an ill-advised ball that will be picked off. And if it's in Tennessee's case, that's something that could really put them into a ball game they don't want to be in. Next up, we got the Iowa offense here. And they are in their own spread formation. They got the standard, the standard shell of it. You got your offensive line, quarterback, shotgun, running back, beside him in the side cart position. But this here, they have trips set to the wide side of the field, which is the top of the screen. You'll see that the outside receiver, the number one receiver up at the top, he is super far outside. Makes you wonder what it is that they're up to. And they have really just a detached tight end at number 3 and then a standard slot receiver. So this is a trips formation. Let's see what Iowa does with this this spread set.
All vert.
Not a whole lot. What happens here? Let's take it back and look.
Okay.
Hey, you got a big old problem right there. And here is the thing I think that Tennessee needs to really try to take advantage of. Iowa does not have the speed to match what Michigan has up front. And Tennessee has a couple good pass rushers that, their leading sack guy is still there. What was his name? I can't remember it offhand. But he's going to be playing as one of their edge
James
rushers.
Pierce, 8 sacks on the season.
Pierce. The thing that happens here, can you roll this back just to the beginning?
Yes.
And let's watch. Obviously, the guards in the center, they've got these guys handled, right? These edge rushers, watch how quickly, just if you could like, almost see the relationship between the receivers getting downfield and the ends getting to the quarterback, you'll see that the receivers just can't get to their spots quickly enough. A little further.
I want to just also, I mean, even just now point out the get off from the defensive ends, especially this one at the top of the screen. By the time the receiver has left the line of scrimmage, the defensive end is already a yard in the backfield.
Yeah, and that's really what I want people to see. So look at that. 2 yards into the backfield, number one and number two receivers are just now touching the line of scrimmage. Oh my gosh, this is a sack waiting to happen.
So we have two defensive ends who are 6 yards into the backfield, rushing the quarterback, and we have all all four receivers for Iowa. One of them has a step over it, but all four receivers for Iowa are 4 to maybe I'll give this guy 4 yards off the line of scrimmage.
These are some slow humans.
On top of a quarterback who is going to hold the ball because he is just not good at his job.
Yeah. So I think with this, you see that Iowa is in a, they're in a danged if you do, danged if you don't situation as a play caller. And I know that they've sure enough given Brian Ferentz they've given him some heck this year. But I'm going to tell you right now, that's okay. He probably deserves it. I don't know. But there's not a thing anybody can do about it. When their defensive ends are faster than your wide receivers, you're fixing to get sacked because here's what happens. It was 2nd and 8. You want to throw that ball to get someplace around the stick. But when they're on top of you, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah. I mean, this was an interesting scenario for Iowa. Obviously, there's 40 seconds left in the half. They're trying to push the ball downfield because they're just trying to set up for a field goal or something. But and so you're not necessarily going to see them run 4 verts like that very often. But the point being made here is that they're going to have troubles trying to do anything with the ball in the air. Back on defense. I'm highly curious to see what kind of looks Iowa gives Nico and how Nico does with deciphering them. This is our second defensive play. We have a very interesting looking box here. Now, obviously, this is in the middle. This was not quite at the start of it, so you don't get to see the full picture before a motion happens. But you got 2 linemen with their hands on the ground. You got 2 stand-up defensive ends. So we got 4 linemen here. Your Mike still in the box, and then your outside guys are well outside of the defensive ends because they have receivers that are accountable for. And then you still have your corners. One corner, on the top of the screen, he's playing off while he's got an outside guy in front of him. And then you have your 2 safeties playing 15 yards off the ball. So again, for as far as the safeties go, their whole concern is we're not going to let you guys get behind us. And then you got your downfield or on the bottom part of the field, your corner is playing up. which I don't know how often we're going to see that. I think they're going to be a little bit too afraid of Tennessee's speed on the outside to play their corners up a whole lot. But the idea, obviously, with this is okay, corner plays up, safety's going to be over top of him for help if he gets burnt. And then we're gonna throw something weird at him in the box. We're gonna have a different kind of pressure. So it'll be very interesting to see Nico try and decipher different looks from this Iowa defense. Again, as we talked about before, they don't have a lot of studs on defense. You know, obviously their defensive line is great, but they're not looking for star play. They're looking for team defense. That's how they beat you. They play sound defense better than most teams because they have to. And part of that is good scheme and good different looks to give the offensive line trying to figure out who they're blocking and give the quarterback as he's trying to decipher what's going on in front of him. Let's let this play and see how they do here. As I just talked about them being sound, Michigan breaks one.
I think this one here, though, if you look at it and just consider it situationally, you see something about them. It's pretty clear. Michigan has the more athletic team, and Michigan basically kind of, I guess, to use an old boxing phrase, they rope a dope them a bit here. Iowa does not want to get beat, so they're near the end of the half. Michigan wants that. They want that field goal. Because they want to be able to have themselves a as close to a 2 touchdown game as they can get. They know that Iowa is going to be selling out to defend the deep pass, not let somebody get over them, because that's what most teams will do in this scenario. And they kind of use the paranoia against them and they gash them for a huge run. I think Tennessee needs to be thinking the same way. I mean, I really do. I think that Tennessee needs to get in this Iowa defense's head to a degree and make them overplay their hand, because typically Iowa's a team that's going to sit in their formation. They're not going to do crazy things. They're going to match you, but they're not going to do radical things. They're going to play their base and they're going to play their wrinkles off of the base to match you and to game plan you. So Tennessee can find ways to get them in scenarios to where they might break their standard. I think that's where you really beat a team like Iowa. First, you just out athlete them. Second, you find ways to make them do a little too much. Make them do too much, I guess, is really what you want to say. And when they do, that's when you smoke them. Where are we going to next? Nice move by the referee there.
Yeah. Back on defense. We'll let this one play. Just an absolute demolishing of the quarterback here. Great pass rush. Now,
and I mean, to me, tell me if I'm wrong. This is standard pressure.
Yeah, it's 4-on-5. They only send their defensive line. Their backers stay back. Again, this is that 2 hands down, 2 stand-up defensive ends. They still, one linebacker out here over top of number 2, and then the other outside backer really is playing right behind the defensive end. So it's a light box. Now, situation matters here. There's 9 seconds left in the game. So this is just the next play after the one we just saw. There is situational here where they are deathly afraid of the deep pass, which is what we just talked about. That's why Michigan got to gash them on the previous play. And here they're setting up. They know we got 9 seconds. We got to keep them out of the end zone. We got to hopefully stop them from being able to get a field goal. So they're going to keep everybody back, standard pressure. We're only going to send 4. None of this nonsense where we only send 2, like we see many teams do and get burnt by it. So they still send 4. They stay in their zone coverage on the back end. They play man on the front end. So, the corners, outside backer over here on number 2, they're playing man. Backers are playing. Your middle backer is man up and kind of sitting in the middle waiting on that running back. And then you have 2 safeties who are playing cloud, not letting anything behind them. And then it's just a great a great pass rush or great pressuring by Iowa's defensive line. They just beat them. They beat Michigan on a 4-on-5. I mean, if you look, they are all back on him. Three of them. You know, three guys surrounding the quarterback, nowhere for McCarthy to go.
And that, I mean, this is honestly a scenario where I think you have to say, if you allow Iowa to understand what you are doing in certain situations, they're going to make your life hard. Parker, their defensive coordinator, guy's good. He is flat out good. And in this particular situation, you see what happens the play before, and it's I know that it seems odd to give these into the second half or into the second quarter plays back to back to back. But if you look at the difference between the previous play and this one, it's daylight and dark. Iowa knows without question Michigan has to get into field goal range right here or it's all for nothing. They know it's a pass. Look what the difference is when they know it's a pass. They get on them and eat them up. So Tennessee has got to keep Iowa's defense on its toes, or it's just not going to work out for them.
I mean, and Iowa, going back to the previous play and the one we just watched, there again, this is same set. Everything is the same. You know, they're still in man on, you know, up front for the DBs. You still got two safeties, you know, playing cloud, not letting anything go deep. And Iowa is fully expecting pass here. I don't remember if we mentioned the previous play when we were looking at it. There's 16 seconds left in the game. So, like we said, they want to get to a field goal. They want to try and push the ball down the field. Iowa said, all right, you know, we're going to have two deep safeties. We're not going to let you get behind us. We're going to man up underneath just to prevent the quick throw and yards after catch. We're going to stop that from happening, and we're going to rush. We're going to rush four. Now, great play call by Michigan. Great job recognizing what they had. You know, hand the ball off, get close to the 50, and then boom. I think there may have been a penalty there. Okay, back to the 43-yard line.
They got backed up.
They got backed up just a little bit, but you know they still got a first down, still got yardage. And now there's 9 seconds left in the game. And I mean,
half that is.
Sorry, yeah, 9 seconds left in the half, and Michigan could run the ball again. They have one timeout left, but you're going to want to save that timeout so you can actually get into your field goal unit. So there is really no option here. And even if Michigan tried to get cute and tried to run the ball, they have two safeties behind. They have DBs running man, so they'll be down the field by the time the running back gets down the field. So they'll be able to rally to it. They're not afraid of that. So they say, all right, we're going to send the same thing. We're coming after you. We know you're going to try and pass this ball. We're not going to let it happen. All right.
Man, those defensive tackles got off. Here's the old Hawkeye offense. What have we got here?
Oh boy. I'm gonna let this play run. This is how Iowa moves the ball. They are in the air. This is the only time that you will see them really have major success is throwing to a tight end. And I mean, this is a tight end screen. You know, Michigan has good major pursuit with the defensive line, and when you on this freeze frame, when you look at this, Michigan's defenders, all of them are, 5 yards off the line of scrimmage with one coming up. You know, one guy recognized immediately this is a screen. He's coming in, but you have blockers here. I mean, good throw. You know, it's a screen, so it's not nothing to write home about, but it gets the guy it needs to go to. Block is made for the most part, and the tight end, a tough son of a gun, getting yards, offensive line pushing him when they can get to him. And I expect to see this multiple times in different ways, in different looks against Tennessee. The idea of rotational linebackers out for Tennessee, 4 DBs being out for Tennessee. Again, we talked about how Iowa seems very inept at throwing the ball, but when they do, or if they're going to have any success, it's going to look like this. And this is how they're going to be able to move the ball if they can against the Vols defense.
I mean, I think you see just in the way they set up at the beginning. I mean, they're in a under center tight end wing set with twins to the opposite side motion coming this way. They they play old school football. I
Mhm.
mean, this is what you would expect to see, out of your wing T high school setup. It's not much different. And Iowa plays within this, but one of the things that I think that allows them to do, they can make a lot better use out of these tight ends, out of a formation like this, because I think what they want to get you into is this game of, who's covering who.
Mhm.
And what ends up happening with these teams is like with this one, you don't expect a tight. I don't think anybody expects a tight end screen at all. I mean, that's a
Right.
pretty old book, but boy, it works right here to get them 10 yards, when they needed it. Uh, by the same token, expect to see a lot of the traditional wing T look where you send the tight end on a corner route and you send the wing underneath them or vice versa, and they try to play games with these tight passing formations, and because teams are they're so used to seeing multiple receivers spread across the field that whenever you flip in and you say, "Hey, we're going to compress this formation," it takes a minute to figure out exactly how you're going to cover these guys because you're not used to seeing them in a compressed set. And it can work out because Iowa, honestly, the way their defense plays, they need to score, say, 20 points. And how they're going to get their chunks is by hitting these tight ends and wings on plays downfield, and they're going to move the ball through these little underneath passes like you just saw and run the ball with their back. And so expect to see a lot of this kind of thing from Iowa tomorrow, working out of these tight formations. They do, a pretty good job with it. Are they going to move the ball a lot? Probably not. But can they be effective out of them? Yeah, you bet they can. And next up, I think we see the Hawkeye defense again. This this is where you can smoke them if you're Tennessee. So what you see here, you've got a standard trip set to the field. The ball's on the boundary hash. Got a compressed receiver down here. So you can already see Iowa's set up here. This is a full-on passing down like what we've seen them in before. You can almost guarantee that the corners and the safeties, the four deep defenders, are going to drop into quarters coverage. In this case, a linebacker drops with them. Okay, so if you are a play caller, what you want to see happen is you want to see the slot receivers make your play. Outside receivers, not so much. It's probably not going to happen with them right here. But what you are concerned with is, say, the safety, the second man from the top of the screen for the Iowa defense. He has to play run and pass, even though he is truly a pass defender. The eyes have to be watching two things. So they're going to be watching the quarterback. Now, the question here, I already see with this guy, he and the bottom cornerback, they are standing very flat footed. And what you want to see happen if you are the quarterback, can my receiver beat a flat footed defender? So let's watch this play.
Smoked.
The answer is yes. This is rare. This is very rare. Might be the only time all year that Iowa gets beat like this on a deep pass, truth be told. But when it happens, it's going to happen to a safety in quarters whose eyeballs linger in the backfield just a little bit too long, and the receiver finds a way to get around him. And when that happens, if the safety's not deeper than the deepest receiver, it's usually 6 points for the offense, just like it is here.
Scenario also matters here a little bit differently with in this game. Iowa is up 10-0 in the first half. I don't quite remember how Iowa got to 10 points. I don't know if it was from the offense or if it was something else, but they are playing with a lead. There are 4 minutes left in the half. Nebraska is trying to get something going. And this is one of the rare times in some of the film that I have watched and some of the film that we've shown where you see all 11 defenders for Iowa within 10 yards of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it's
That's a
7.
good observation.
And with that, they're playing with a lead. and it's not quite time for heaves down the field with only 9 seconds left in the half as it was in the Michigan film. But so that they feel more confident with how they're playing up. And as Block pointed out, with flat feet, and again, we already said, Iowa has a good defense, but they don't have great studs on defense. So if you've got a fast guy, in the slot, and you're running a go and you see a safety for Iowa, or even a corner for Iowa, where they're just not quite ready for an all-out sprint, you have a good shot at beating them here. And it's a little bit wild to me based on it's 3rd and 11. I'm surprised that they don't have their feet where the stick is. Just based on the way Iowa plays, they're playing this a little bit further up than I would be comfortable with when you're Iowa. Now, obviously, most teams, like when they have speed on defense, they can do this, and this is still deep coverage for a lot of teams. For Iowa, this is shallow, and Nebraska does a great job of recognizing it. Quarterback makes a throw, and it's just burnt toast.
Give you one guess for the big play that set up the touchdown that Iowa got to put them up 7 on Nebraska. What do you think? The middle of the drive, big play. What do you think they hit?
Tight end.
Tight end for a 38-yard gain. Like we said, that's their go-to. That is their go-to. And for the Iowa offense, if you want to kind of, I guess think something about how offenses work, like what we said about this, the slot receiver right here against the quarter's safety, same ends often get forgotten and they can tear straight down the field untouched. And a team like Iowa is looking for a tight end to do the same thing that this slot receiver does right here.
I forgot we had this side of the copy. This safety is expecting a break. He's expecting a break on the stick, and he's taught. I mean, if you see where he starts slowing down, he slows down at 11 yards. Good field awareness by him, where to slow down. He's expecting a break right on the stick, and he's ready to make that play so they don't get this first down. I'm not sure, I don't know how Nebraska, how sophisticated their offense is, and if they give their receivers choices when they're running the routes. It very well may be that they do, and this receiver has a choice here. If you see the DB break down, slow down a little bit, gas it. If he turns his hips and he runs deep because he's expecting you to run deep, break it down, break the route off, and stop and get green grass and let the quarterback hit you. I'm not sure if that is what is happening here, but regardless, the DB starts slowing down. So not only is he more shallow than Iowa likes to play, and he is not going to be nearly as fast as receiver, but as this receiver comes at him, instead of turning his hips, instead of continuing his fast back pedal, which he had a good start off doing, he starts slowing down, expecting the break, and Nebraska's receiver makes him play. Boom. Another angle of it.
Yeah, you can just tell by his reaction that he was expecting something else.
All right, one more for the mighty Iowa offense.
Just in a strong I formation right here. Watch him go.
Remember, we said this is one of the big games for Iowa's running back. I believe it was 174 or 145, one of the two, against Nebraska's defense in this game, assisted by this play as far as yards per carry go and total yardage. Iowa is hoping that there's a breakdown in Tennessee's front that allows them to escape like this, and then it's beat the safety.
And this play here, if you, although it looks different in that you have a under center quarterback and a running back who's an I formation back for all intents and purposes, this is still nothing different from the H back split zone that you see from spread teams. This is no different than if the Iowa quarterback was 4 yards in the backfield, the running back beside him, who runs toward the right side and cuts back to the left. The idea of this play is in this case, the fullback who, is up playing that H-back position, he's going to go across the formation and most likely kick an end when you see this motion. What that does is when the running back presses the play side A gap, which is the gap to the gap between the center and the guard on the right-hand side in this play, he's going to have the opportunity to fit into any hole that he sees, because that fullback's going to open up a little lane that instead of just running behind him, he can fill into whichever hole opens. So watch this. Kicks the end. He stays basically in the lane that he's supposed to, because when they see this happen, that the next defensive lineman in, the one that being blocked by number 60, he falls into that cutback lane. Well, here's the beauty about his own run. You're just pushing them to the place that they're already going. And so that guy hits the B gap, 60 pushes him outside. The other man, the other defensive tackle, he goes into the A gap, the center pushes him on further, and a little seam opens up that you see the Iowa running back just go straight through. One man to beat. Oh, no, he's out of the way because the offensive lineman comes up and takes care of him. Number 2 is now cleared out. The linebacker is out of position. There's a safety who gets in no man's land. He puts a little move on him, and he's gone for a big gain. It's as simple as that. It really is. And I believe, is that all the Iowa film we had?
And is all the Iowa film.
Plenty to see there. Iowa's got a chance to put some points on the board. I mean, it's not going to be many, but with their defense, the way that they tend to pitch them, they probably don't need many. And as we see, if Tennessee can keep the Iowa defense in a spot to where they're guessing what Tennessee's offense is going to do, that's going to make their defense much more apt to give up yardage than if you allow them to predict with pretty uncanny accuracy what you're going to do. That's the way you get shut down. On top of that, what you do if you are the Josh Heupel offense, and that's what he's been sitting and looking at since he heard the announcement of Iowa's the opponent. He's been finding those pressure spots. He's looking for that safety that's going to stand flat-footed, and he's going to figure out how to make him stand even more flat-footed so they can beat them with a deep ball or two. Because if Tennessee can come out and Nico slings one for a 65-yard touchdown early in the game, it's fixing to be happy times on Rocky Top, because that's what they're wanting to see. Everybody's been waiting for Nico to take over, the reins for Joe Milton. And if he hits a big one like that Nebraska pass, it's going to be good times for Tennessee.
All right.
So at this point, are we ready to pull up some Tennessee film?
Let's pull up some Tennessee film. Here we go.
Tennessee is a standard 4-2-5 defense. Going to have 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers inside, and 5 defensive backs that are a mixture of 2 corners, a safety, and 2 hybrid players that are more like safeties / linebackers. So these guys can come up, as you see right here, and help with the run on the right side of the screen. And you're going to have those linebackers in the middle. So a lot of times it's going to look like could be a 4-4, could look like a 4-3. But at the end of the day, know that that's what Tennessee wants to do. And they're always going to have, typically, like as you see at the bottom of the defensive line, they're going to have an edge rusher who is standing up. And this is probably going to be Pierce, their guy who had 8 sacks this season. He's going to be the one getting after the quarterback. And Tennessee is a pretty stout rush defense, even though I think Georgia gets them a little bit right here. Expect to see that nickel blitz a lot from Tennessee.
Missed tackle. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's all it is tackling, because if they get that tackle right there, this guy's stopped for very minimal gain.
Credit to Georgia running back. He does a good job.
Let me tell you, This is beautiful. Watch this defensive end here. I think he's number 8. Whammo. Shuts that play down. That is how you do it. If you're a child out there playing defensive end, I don't care what they tell you about wrong arming and everything else. If you see 2 fat linemen coming at you and you squeeze down and you put your forearm in the first one's chest, that hole disappears. And all we got left is for that will linebacker to get over there and make the tackle that he dadgum misses. They had that defended perfectly.
Yep. It was a perfect defense, missed tackle. And that's all it takes.
Yep. But I mean, with that being said, I mean that structure's sound. That structure's sound against a good running football team. So Tennessee can stop the run. And that's a good, this is a good idea that they're using right here. So you can't say that Tennessee is just a one-trick pony. I mean, they play defense too. They're getting better. This to me is always the question with the Tennessee defense. And I hope that, for the future that, that the moves that have been made in this in the winter break from college with the transfer portal and recruiting and everything else, I hope that they'll solve a lot of these problems. Because look at how the front seven defends this rollout pass. The man gets over there to take care of the quarterback, to keep him, at bay. They don't respond, to the trickeration right here. Go ahead and roll that. But man, look what happens. It somehow seems with Tennessee's secondary that there are windows of about 6 yards that open between the second and third level of the defense. They did such a good job to not fool or not to fall for, the play used to fool them. But then they leave a simple window open on the backside. And the thing you almost always have to know is any play that has a defense dropping deep and then rolls to the sideline, whether it's the quarterback or whether it's this guy right here, works like a flood play, like a rollout flood play, doesn't make a difference. Guarantee you there is a crosser who is going to be at about probably 15 to 22 yards down the field. Like I said, there he is. Where did he come from? Roll that back and let's see where 19 comes from. That's dirty. Look at that.
Let me get it. There we go.
This is something that you're seeing. You know this. You know this, Rev. This is where I've been. I was there before them. You roll these wings out on a wheel, ain't a soul sees him. So slick. Hides behind that big tackle. Look, they don't even look at him. Nobody makes eye contact with 19, just creeping out through there. It's like, I'm one of the best in the nation, but you're not going to see me. You can hide anybody like that. Can't blame Tennessee for getting beat right here. It was a good play to a good player, but you can fault them for giving up that big old window. You got to close them.
Yeah, this outside guy, by the way he plays it, his responsibility, he's looking in the backfield, he sees some trickeration happening. His responsibility is this tight end, and he just doesn't look at him. He doesn't pay attention. You see him drop back into the, flat, but then he starts backing it up, and it's just too late.
Yeah,
By the time he notices anybody's behind him, it's just too late.
and the thing right there, play your dadgum zone.
Yep.
He's not the flat defender. He's not in man-to-man coverage. Drop to the hook curl. If he drops to the hook curl, if he beats 19 to the 25-yard line, that play does not exist.
Yeah, he takes. I mean, obviously, he comes up because he's reading the backfield. He's coming up right here. I mean, he was beat the moment that he took a step up after pass was read. He did not get to his zone quick enough. Flat guy's number 6. Number 6 does his job. He gets over there and covers it. If the only option left was a check down, then it's obviously him and 14 in open grass. But he does his job. I think this is 27. 27 just gets sucked up. He doesn't get the hook curl quick enough, and Brock Bowers just goes right on by. I don't know how you don't have eyes on the best tight end in the country, one of the best players in college football this year,
No, I
but
don't need it.
you let him go, he makes you pay for it.
Yep. What do we got next on the Vols?
Okay, we got a corner blitz on the bottom of the screen. Not a good time for it. Simple
And this is
toss.
something you see a lot from teams. Whenever you're gonna you blitz that nickel or whoever from the boundary, it's not a bad idea because a lot of times what you expect to see is like a little rollout action or a toss or something maybe to the wide side. So, I mean, I think it's a good idea. But at the same time, you can look at the Tennessee defense right now. My money says that well, they've kind of got them here. I'll go ahead and say that they've kind of got them. Um, the top has a tight end and a wing. Now they've got their edge out there. They've also got two linebackers. They've got a safety drop down up there. So I guess technically they have got them matched up. But the thing that really gets me right here, if I'm the one calling the plays, Tennessee is outflanked at the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
And they have an athlete in the wing who can get out there and get in the way of that linebacker running to the toss. And the tackle's open, so he can walk up, to the linebacker level basically. But instead, what they do, and they do this a lot. This is a good play that Georgia runs, and I can't believe people give it to them. I mean, it's stupidity, in my opinion. The end right here at the top of the screen for Tennessee, he cannot get outside to affect this play. You have got both the tackle and the wing wrapping that. You just got a little bit of a pin and pull play, tossing the ball to the running back and seeing if somebody can get there and tackle him. Good design. Terrible defensive setup.
I was going to say, when when you're Georgia and you see this alignment, you know that you have a big gain here. I mean, it is not a backbreaker game by any means, but it is a good game, a good gain on 1st and 10. There's just not enough manpower over here for Tennessee to be able to cover this. You have, again, who we've already described. He's one of the best players in the country. He can block, he can catch, he can run, he can do all things. I mean, he's further outside than their defensive end. Their defensive end split
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
inside shade, and then your linebackers is stack over the end, and then all you've got left is a corner who is playing 8 yards off the ball. You're outflanked. You're just flat out outflanked. You got, and then I mean the idea of where you're bringing that nickel corner blitz from the bottom part of the field here. It's a smart it's a smart use. You see a lot of teams do it, and there are some teams that really connect on it because quarterbacks a lot of times they don't always remember that a blitz can come from that area. So you can catch teams lacking a lot. So you see a lot of turnovers, see a lot of sack fumbles using that corner or safety blitz off of the edge, a little bit delayed. I mean, this wasn't delayed. This was timed up very, very well by zero. But when you do something like this, generally speaking, that means that you have to, if you're trying to play sound defense, you have to account for the area that guy vacates when he rushes. And in doing so, that's another defender that is not on the side of where the ball's going. I mean, if in this freeze frame, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, we're accounted for. This guy has full position on the end. He's not making this play. That's Brock Bowers making a good block. Delpit coming through to hit 35. And then you have I don't know how, the 300-pound man coming in to block a linebacker. There's no way that's going to work.
And look what happens right there too. Which I mean, this running back ought to be whipped. Maybe Rollins take the briar to him. Get outside for the love of Pete.
He ran to the one spot that he'd get tackled.
Yeah, they could tackle him, and look at old big boy there, man. He took out 2 or 3 people. That big tackle did pulling out there.
Open your
Man, that's a
eyes.
play.
That Tennessee orange is not hard to see. Yeah, he ran
No,
right into 3 defenders.
no, Lord have mercy. Get out there and run.
All right, now to the Tennessee offense.
Oh, and here he is, the man of the hour in a couple of hours, Nico at quarterback. What I'll say about this guy, this is his big run against UConn. I mean, UConn's not a world beater. I mean, they're not anybody beater much, but nevertheless, this clip here shows guy can run. And I tell you the thing too that stands out to me, he looks like a big, just string bean of a guy. He's a pretty big boy. Probably a little over 200 pounds, about 6'4" or 5. Sets up back there, sees his spot, and he takes off. That's a big body coming downfield. Now he's not like the Virginia Tech quarterback. I mean, he's not just he's not a certified like a USDA hoss, but that's good running,
Mm-hmm.
and he knows what he is too. Look at that. Some people might say, oh, well, why did he do that? He knows what he is, and he's not a run first guy. But when he gets the opportunity to beat you with his feet, he's going to beat you with his feet, and you have to like that if you're Tennessee, even though this is against maybe a less than stellar opponent. You still like the move that Nico makes right here.
Something that stands out, and not only good pocket presence, trying to take his reads, looking around, but the feel in the pocket for when you need to
Mm-hmm.
get out of it. Again, we know that this is UConn. That doesn't change the fact that he's being chased in the pocket. The pocket is collapsing on him. His tackle got beat, and he's got a guy on him. And instead of doing the thing that I have watched many young guys, many old guys hold on to the ball, try and stay in the pocket a second too long, and take a big hit, he feels that pressure. He understands where it's coming from, and he immediately, as soon as the tackle disengages, he immediately starts running out of the pocket, looking downfield. Eyes are still downfield, looking for a setup, and not the greatest throw. I mean, he throws this thing a foot or two over his receiver, but his receiver makes the play anyway.
You guys helping him out.
Helps him out. But this is good awareness and a good play by a very young guy.
So take this back just a little bit further. There's something I'm wondering about. Do you think now you've played quarterback and I have not? Here's what I think is interesting. I want to look at this 3 technique for UConn right here. This defensive tackle coming up the field. I'm wondering if in his read he scans the field, if he sees the change in demeanor of that defensive lineman, and that lets him know I got to skate. Because see, watch how solid he stands. Keep on going right there. Something changed. He's taken off. Because the thing I wonder with it is that whenever you get that feeling as a defensive lineman, or you see it, because you're looking at him and you're seeing that picture back there, whenever you see a number 90 come into the backside like that, all of a sudden it's time to contain. And they're about to get a sack. And so I wonder if he responds, to the demeanor of what's going on in front of him, and then just sprints out sideways. Because if you look at him, he doesn't roll out. He just, got to go. And he keeps on the line because that's the fastest, as we know, shortest distance between 2 points. Run straight down the line, make them chase you. Don't belly it out where they can get an angle on you and make your throw. I mean, I think this is a slick play by a guy who doesn't have a whole lot of experience at the college level.
So there are 2 things here that, as a quarterback, you can be taught to look at, as you said, demeanor. That's pretty high level stuff. But you definitely can be looking at the idea if a defense is coached soundly, you have one side of a defense, a pass rush coming through, and it's getting home, and you know that you've got a guy, and really anybody in the pocket, doesn't matter if they can run or not. You know that the other side has to contain, has to stop the quarterback runs, quarterback scramble on the other side because he has to get away. So um, if a defense is taught well and the defensive players are actually paying attention to what's going on here, like you said, they should somewhat disengage from what they're doing and try and get outside. The linebacker is actually who is the one who comes and actually does it. You can see him try and get outside. The tackle does a good job trying to give another second. Getting his hands on that backer. The other thing that you have when you're doing quarterback drills is timing. How much time do you have realistically in a pocket, and the internal clock for quarterbacks? You might hear this referenced when you're watching, when you're watching the game and you have a quarterback in the booth, or just somebody who's talked to quarterbacks in the booth. They'll talk about the internal clock in the pocket for a quarterback, and really what they're saying is from the moment that the ball is snapped, you are drilled as a QB to, and different coaches have different philosophies and different timings, and this also works with when you're throwing to spots and your receivers have the same timings, and you have 1 2 3 throw, 1 2 throw. There are different philosophies and different teachings, but it all revolves around a clock in your head that should be going as soon as you say go, as soon as that ball snapped. And in this one, I mean, he has time in the pocket, so when he's over here looking at the left, he can see this tackle. He can see him rushing on the outside. So that kind of lets him know he has visual of him, and then from the moment he turns his head, clock starts, and you have a second to get out of that. You have 2 seconds to get, depending on what's going on in his head. A lot of times, what you'll see young guys do is that clock is not quite quick enough. They don't release the ball, or they don't pull the ball down and get out of the pocket or take it and run. They don't do that fast enough, which is where you see big sacks and big mistakes from these quarterbacks. Here, that clock goes on perfectly for Nico, and this is one of the things it's drilled into you when you're off season, summer, that kind of stuff. When you're doing quarterback drills to try and get this internal clock in your head the right speed. Now, obviously, it's not always going to work for you. Sometimes guys on the defense, they make really good plays. Your clock doesn't quite hit correctly, but this tells me, again, it's UConn, it's 49-3, whatever. It's still a D1 athlete chasing you on the field, and you're still a new up and coming guy, and he does what veterans do, which is have that clock go off the right moment, get outside and look downfield. So there's two things there. As far as, I'm not sure whether he really noticed the defense trying to contain him on the right side of the field, or if his clock said, okay, hey, it's time to get out of here. I've been standing around too long. The guy that I just lost sight of, he's coming around my tackle. And I mean, I've done this with quarterback drills when I've coached them, and I've also done them when I've been in them as a quarterback. When you see a tackle fan out, just take a defensive end or a rushing linebacker, whoever might be on the outside. When you see the tackle take that guy on the outside, you are aware, you're made aware, and you have to know at some point that guy is going to go all the way around, and he's going to be faster than my tackle. So he's going to go all the way around him, and he eventually will get to me. And it's the tackle's responsibility to try and buy the quarterbacks as much time as possible, but he can't just be there forever, because that guy who's pursuing the quarterback, his whole goal is to get to the quarterback, which means he's doing everything possible to get around that tackle. So great job by Nico there, just to have that clock go off in the right moment. And also, as he is trying to escape the pocket, eyes are downfield. He's still looking for a place to throw the ball. And that's another big thing that some people don't do. They get a little bit scared. They get rushed, and they just tuck it and they go. And there's also, sometimes you want to see a guy tuck it and go when he's got a lot of green grass. But he's keeping his eyes downfield, looking to see if he's got a guy, finds him, and his receiver makes a good play for him.
It's good. Here we got another Nico play. Same game. Suckered them. Got a little bit of a step. You get that, you break that long run. Sometimes all it takes is just a little bit of a bite like that. and they'll come up on you. One step forward opens that tight end up a little bit more than he already was.
I love this. I
A
love
running
this
back
from
as
him.
opposed.
I love this from him. This is one you have to respect the quarterback run, and you've already, if you're UConn as a defense, you've already been beat by the quarterback run. Him taking it down, and scampering for 30 plus yards. So when you're that linebacker right there and you see him pull that ball down and he's acting like he's about to run, that's all it takes, especially since you've already been beaten by it. That's all it takes for you to stop your back pedal, to take a wrong step or just pause, and then just get beat.
And that's all number 8 did right there. Just one little right there pause.
And if you watched
about that.
if you watched our stuff when we were talking about, I think the last couple shows that we've done, we talked about the wrong step by a linebacker. All it takes is one, and that is in regards. We were talking a lot about in regards to run fit, and if you just commit one extra step the wrong way, a good back is going to make that make you pay, because you're either taking yourself out of the play, putting yourself closer to the line, taking the step the wrong way and getting eaten up by offensive linemen, or the running back makes you pay for it by making a move on you. If you commit just one wrong step, that's a second that you are behind the ball carrier. In this instance, we're talking about it for a pass play. You make one wrong step, you bite one step, and that is all it took, due to momentum and speed and everything else, for that tight end to all of a sudden have a 3-yard cushion where it should have been 1 yard, if that. Good job by Nico. Great ball placement.
Roll this back just for 1 second. Here's the thing that I think that when I look at this, and I know, we just right there, pause that right there. That's what I want to see. You don't want to blow it up to the point that it's more than what maybe it should be. Look at the position of his body.
Mm-hmm.
That right there, in my opinion, is like intergalactic level mind trick. A full lunge. Takes those steps forward and lunges, knee probably 2 inches off the ground. Is it risky? Yeah, because that knee could touch. But here's what it does. Look at that linebacker in the center of the play. A dead out pass play from a multiple wide receiver formation. That boy believes so hard that the quarterback is running the football that he throws himself into the defensive line. I don't think he does that if you don't get that lunge. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think he does that if you don't get that deep lunge, because his pad level changes, and he's like, oop, he's running.
I agree with you. I think that's kind of why I chuckled and smiled. And I said, "What a great job by Nico here when we first saw this play." It's not only just the trickeration of the fake of him running, but it's how he does it. He looks like a ball carrier right here.
Yeah, he does.
And when you're a defender and you're coaching defenders, you are, especially when it comes to rollouts. Happens all the time in today's game. Quarterbacks rolling out, they have an option to take it themselves. They have an option to look downfield and make something happen. And when you're the defender on that outside, you are taught to watch the ball and then watch the arm and then the hips of the quarterback when he's rolling out. Because you'll see good quarterbacks, they'll act like they're gonna run the football. So they'll bring the ball down for a second. So you're watching that ball, you see the ball's being brought down, watching the arm. Is he tucking it? And that's something else here that you see him do. Not only is he lunging, but he tucks that football. It's all in one very quick motion. He brings the football down, tucks it, and then he squares his hips. So all three things that are taught: watch the ball. All right, ball's being brought down. Watch the arm. Ball's being tucked by the arm. Watch the hips. Hips are now turned as if he's a runner. those are the three indicators when you're a defender on the outside. So linebackers, DBs, even like defensive ends, they are all taught this. When you see that, that means run. That means come up and make a play. But when you have the skill set that he has, and I will also, I'm impressed by the speed in which he does all this. I mean, it's hard
Mhm.
for me to get this in a freeze frame because of how quick he does all three motions, then gets out of the motion to then throw the ball. It happens in a second. All of
That's
that happens
quick.
within a
That's
second.
quick.
It is so quick. It is just quick enough to kill both linebackers because, as you were pointing out, the Mike, if he doesn't see that, his step is backwards, not forward.
Mhm.
If his step is backwards, that offensive lineman that you see just now engaging with him does not get his hands on him that quick. Now, he still may get him, but that guy has a step backwards. He's going to try and turn his hips. He's going to try and backpedal very quickly, and at the very least, he's going to make that throw a lot harder to make because he's going to get in the way of it. Sinking linebacker. That's
Yeah.
what he should be doing there. But that one step forward, all of a sudden, engages him directly with the offensive lineman for Tennessee. He's just now a non-factor. Now it's an easy breezy throw. Just throw it over the referee there.
Pretty.
Great job. We could be
That's
overblowing
pretty.
it, but man, the technique there, whether taught or just natural, whatever it is for him, that is going to make him dangerous for years to come. So Tennessee fans,
Right.
that's a big deal.
And I mean, dude was number one recruit in the country for a reason.
Correct.
I mean, you see a little bit of that right there. Next up for Tennessee, you see them in what I guess some people might call a strong or a stack formation. And here's one of the most common plays. Run this one a lot myself. This is we call it strong left, dart right, and that is the running back that you will be seeing for Tennessee. So hey, how this play works? This is just, I mean, a little like Kentucky's light box right here, basically a 5-man box. You're going to read that the outside man. All this play is this is the H back and the tackle wrapping the line. Basically, it's not exactly a counter play. It's where people call it a dart. And I tell you, man, this the strong side right here across to the weak. This play works. I can promise you, this little play works. Sampson, the running back, is going to get behind these guys, and he's going to get him a nice run out of it. So you watch that. Everybody's going to block down. H is going to lead. Tackle going to follow. Somebody's on the outside. We'll go ahead and kick him. And our bet is that you can't tackle our back. And I think you can expect to see a lot of inside zone and a lot of dart for Sampson. He's a heck of a player. And I think that whenever you start seeing that outside linebacker bite up just a little bit too much, I think that's where you're going to see if Nico can keep the ball and burn them on those backside reads. I think there's a lot to be excited about for if you're Tennessee. There's a lot of I guess there's a lot of worry, but at the same time, you got a dependable running back. You got a pretty good line up there in front of him, and you got a chance to see your number one recruit in the country playing for your team. I think there's a lot to be excited about right there.
And that'll wrap Tennessee's film.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. What do you think tomorrow?
Oh, well,
today, rather. Happy New Year.
Oh yeah, Happy New Year, everyone. In the new age of college football, with all of the transfer portal and the opt-outs and bowl games, which is just more rampant now than ever before, it's really hard to know when talking about these games. I mean, we talked Ole Miss, Penn State. We broke down some film, and after we posted that, not that long after we posted that, new information came out before the game that there was going to be guys that we saw on film that were on the depth chart to play that did not play. Same thing, with the FSU film, there were multiple guys that we thought were going to be playing for FSU's defense that didn't, that just didn't. So it's hard, breaking these games down and talking about them, especially ones where you have so many opting out, and things change. Things are very fluid right up until that first snap or that kickoff. So for this game, it really comes down to the body of work that the teams have shown. Obviously, you're going to have different guys playing in different positions, but I don't think different guys playing in different positions is suddenly going to make Iowa's offense be able to score a bunch of points. They've not shown the ability to do that whatsoever, and you know Tennessee's defense, while missing people, they're good defense. They're not slouches. They play in a good conference. They play good teams. They still are, I believe, a top 25 defense. So, with all that being said, I don't see Iowa being able to score many points against Tennessee's defense. And on the flip side, Nico is obviously very intriguing. Uh, how he runs this offense against what is said to be a pretty good defense, if not, some people will toss around the word elite. I think, I would maybe debate that just because of who they play, and as we've already looked at. But it's a good experience game for Nico, and all of the Tennessee Volunteer fans to actually see this guy finally play. And something that really stood out to me in that film with just a few plays that we saw, it's not the throws, it's not, him being able to run the ball, it's intangibles. So some of them can be taught and they can be drilled into you, but for him, being a young guy, he's only been, you know, he's a freshman. He's a superstar, and obviously, he's like we said, he's highly rated for a reason. But even highly rated guys take time to adapt to the game. The speed changes from high school to college dramatically, and yet, you saw his internal clock as far as being rushed. You saw that go off correctly in the right moment. You saw him make a fantastic little fake out in the play after, faking that run and then going back and throwing the football. It really just, he seems to be able to make good decisions and do things that you typically don't see from young quarterbacks. And that makes me feel like he's going to be able to have a good game here. I think Highpool is going to, put him in good situations. They're obviously, Tennessee's going to be able to run the football some, and they're going to want to, and I think they'll be able to, just by the nature that their offense is very well equipped to do so. Now they obviously don't have I think they're starting two running backs, but they still have guys in the backfield who can run the football very, very well, who still are very effective. We saw a clip of that with Tennessee's running back against Kentucky. So I just think that a combination of Iowa's lack of offense and really what this game means going forward for Tennessee, I see Tennessee coming away with this.
Yeah, I think that there's an opportunity here for, not only Nico, but also Dylan Sampson. I mean, this is going to be his first shot to, he's going to be running back one. And I think that he's put in some good work, in his time at Tennessee. He's a hard running guy. And I expect to see him have some success against the Iowa defense. I also expect to see some of the Tennessee receivers to have, built up some chemistry with Nico over this month, because that's
Mhm.
a month is a long time to train. I think Iowa's going to come out and give them, a really, really good ball game. I think Iowa's going to do everything they can to slow them down, to confuse Nico, to put some pressure on them to stop the run. Uh, I think that they're probably going to have a little bit of success with their tight end passing game. I can see that happening, but I don't know that Iowa's going to be able to establish the run well enough to have a solid offense that can control the ball the way that they want to, and that can get in that, say, 21 to 28 point range. Because I think that Iowa's going to have to score above 20 points to win this ball game. And honestly, I think they're going to have a bit of a time doing it, because one of the things that hurts is whenever you depend on tight ends to be your downfield threat, they don't often have the speed capable of breaking a game wide open. So you still get into the position of having to drive the field with not the best players in the world on the offensive side of the ball. So I think Iowa's work's cut out for them. The thing that I wonder with this game, uh, meaning what it's going to mean, is will the stage be too big when Nico steps on it? I don't think it will. And I know that I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think Chance is going to be the rebel in this one, and I think he's picking Iowa to win. Am I right in that?
Yes. The last time that we talked about it, he thinks that Nico is going to be throwing the ball to Iowa's defense a couple times this game.
Yeah.
That's going to cause him to lose it.
Well, I will. I will go out on a limb, and I will be. I guess you'll call me the homer, even though that I'm not exactly what you would call a fanatic by any means, and I think you could testify to that.
Absolutely.
I think Tennessee's going to smoke them. I think Tennessee will smoke Iowa tomorrow. And I think that Nico's going to have a good game. I think Sampson is going to run all over them. And I think the Vols beat them by more than 2 scores. And if it happens the way that I think it will happen, Tennessee is instantaneously in big conversations for next year. I think that's where Josh Heupel wants his team to be, and I think that that's what he is loading all of his bullets up for tomorrow. I think it's going to work out for him. We'll see. Any final parting shots?
I think that this game is very interesting for a number of reasons. I think this game has one of the better storylines as far as teams caring. There's been a lot of talk, and for good reason. Some games you can clearly see teams just do not care, and there are other games where you see that teams really, really care. And I think this game is going to be one of the latter, where both teams coming in have something to prove, as we talked about in the opener. But as you were talking about, this is a game not only for a good closing of this season, which I think Iowa is really wanting. Iowa wants this to be the nice little cap off to a 10-win season. They want that 11th win that they feel like they were cheated against. They want recognition. Hey, we won our side of the Big Ten. Who cares how we did it? We got here. We deserve some recognition. We just beat an SEC team. That's what Iowa wants. They want a cap to a good 2023 season. Tennessee this is not about the 2023 season. This is about what comes in 2024. And the transfers that they've loaded up on, the young guys, some of the younger guys they're going to have playing in this game, and then the superstar quarterback that everyone across this country wants to see play. His first test, he played in games this season, yes, but he played against bad defenses and runaway games. This is a test for him. And that, to me, is enough fire for the Tennessee side. Talking about the reverse of this, if Tennessee were to lose to Iowa, what happens to Tennessee, the Tennessee fan base, the national media, the hype going into next year? I mean, Tennessee's still going to be good next year. I don't think that's much of a stretch to say, but it does change the narrative on this Tennessee team, what happens here. And I think they understand that. I think that Heupel understands that. And I think this is, as you say, going to be a coming out party for Nico. I don't know. I don't really do final score predictions, especially not because of today's age of opt-outs, transfers, and all the other stuff.
Sure.
But I do think that Tennessee is going to come away with this one. And I think down the stretch, as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, I see them rolling. Iowa may make it uncomfortable for him to start. Obviously he's got to lock into a game from the start to finish against a better team than he's seen this year. But I think after the initial wave of getting in the game, the initial wave of seeing what Iowa's going to throw at him, I expect him to button down, make good plays, and show everybody why he was rated so highly.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's the way that it's going to unfold, and I think for the one truism goes for both sides. You have multiple turnovers, you're probably going to lose this game.
Mm-hmm.
You can't keep giving the Tennessee offense a chance to find themselves. And by the same token, if you're Tennessee, you can't let Iowa get into advantageous field position where their 20 and 30-yard deep shots to a tight end turns into a touchdown as opposed to putting them in field goal range. Look for Tennessee to come out on top in this one. If you're with Lock and Rebel, look for the Hawkeyes or the Hawkeyes to pull off, a big win tomorrow and cool down Kirk Ferentz's seat up in Iowa City. Who knows what'll happen? It's a Citrus Bowl. Today, New Year's, January 1st at 12 noon. It's going to be a heck of a ball game. Until then, stay locked in.